Welcome in. It is the Northside Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I'm Mitch Woodmeyer, talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. However you listen or watch the podcast, we always appreciate it, whether it's our website, via the YouTube channel, or on any of those audio platforms. Jason, good to have you back on. This is pretty much your podcast as much as it is mine at this point. There was supposed to be like a rotator of host at first, and then we kind of hammered it down, and it's pretty much you and I, and then we pepper in some Matt Trueblood every once in a while. So, yeah.
You call me the Napoleon of podcasts. I came, I saw, I conquered, right? Or that was Caesar, sorry.
yeah, there you go. Lot to talk about today. I thought we'd start with, well, I didn't have it on the topic board. Again, I always like laying this out just so the viewer gets a better idea, because people listen and watch this at all different times. We are recording Tuesday again for a Wednesday publish, so Tuesday's game has not started. It has not played yet. But one bit of news that we did see earlier this afternoon on Tuesday, as we record this, Ian Happ off the injured list, back in the lineup. He'll lead off Tuesday night for the Cubs against the Marlins. Moises Ballesteros back down to AAA. I think that was the plan all along. That wasn't anything to do with Ballesteros. I saw Jed Hoyer. I listened to a clip of him on 670, the score out of Chicago today, Tuesday, where he said he was actually pleased with how this went. Happ's back, no additional time needed out, and Ballesteros gets his feet wet. He gets a little taste of Major League Baseball, and Hoyer was like praising Ballesteros' bat, how he thinks he'll end up translating his game to the major league level, how he thinks it'll be a really smooth transition once Ballesteros, comes up for the at a full-time basis, or what you would hope would be a full-time basis. Right. But we can start there, I guess, before we talk about sweeping the Southsiders. Pretty standard move. I think it was what people expected, right? Hap up and Ballesteros goes back down.
Yeah. It seems like that's probably what the plan was always kind of all along, which is good. They had talked about in the kind of the off season and the lead up, and how they like to get prospects up and experience some major league time a little bit, even if they're not playing a ton. Ballesteros played against righties every day, but they like to get guys up and just kind of experience the grind. And you look at the numbers, and there was some stuff in there that was pretty good. His bat speed looked pretty good. He squared up a bunch. He wasn't chasing pitches. He wasn't swinging and missing. I think major league pitchers kind of took advantage of his hyper aggressiveness, and you kind of get that. You saw that especially early, where he'd go swinging at pitches outside of the zone and then pull over and ground out of something. I think we kind of saw that with Pete Crow Armstrong when he first came up. Matt Shaw when he came up as well. These high swing, high contact guys can get beaten like that at first. But I was pretty impressed with him. I thought he looked pretty good. So he can go back down to Iowa, continue to work on catching. And we'll probably see him up at some point again. I think they kind of proved it that if, an outfielder goes down outside of Pete Crow or Michael Busch goes down, I think Ballesteros is probably next up. If Suzuki pulls a muscle, if his wrist is bothering him again, if for some reason Tucker has an issue, it's, let's hope not, or Busch. But what'd you think about him, Mitch? Do you think Moises looked pretty good?
Yeah, you can see why they like him so much, why he's one of these highly touted prospects. And another guy who he passed the test for me is like, he didn't look overwhelmed, kind of just like a easygoing approach, to his game. And hopefully at some point, like Jed Hoyer was saying, that's a bat that they could see being a very crucial piece of the puzzle down the road. Maybe not even this year, but you're talking next year, 2 years from now, wherever, even though we would expect him maybe at some point again to come back up this year. So I was impressed. There's always that, it's a small sample size. There's going to be a little learning curve, kind of him getting adjusted to the major league game, because it is, vastly different. So I liked what I saw. It wasn't, I'll say, like, nothing caught me off guard with Ballesteros' game based off what we had talked about, what you had seen at AAA, what the numbers suggested. The moment didn't seem too big for him at all. Seemed fine. So happy with that. Happy that Happer is back for the Cubs at the top of the order. Mentioned the White Sox series, and I don't want to pile on the White Sox too much, because that fan base is going through it. I mean, seems like there's little direction. There's no, I don't know, like, where's the promise at? Like, are you clinging on to like 26-year-old Tim Elko? Like where's the promise? It's tough for White Sox fans right now. But series over the weekend. White Sox led in 2 of the 3 games and still lost all 3. The Cubs outscored the White Sox, Jason, 26-8 in the series. To me, that was a series. And baseball's weird, right? Like, had they only taken 2 of 3 from the White Sox, I wouldn't have been surprised. Not because it's the Cubs or the White Sox, just because it's baseball. If they had lost 2 or 3, I would have been like, oh, dang, that sucks. But I wouldn't have been like sounding the panic alarms or anything. But the Cubs get the sweep. And to me, I look back on it and I'm like, that was kind of a take care of your business, don't play with your food type series where it's just like the White Sox are severely undermanned and the Cubs are rocking and rolling. Just take care of business. They did that. They win all 3. And Pete Crow Armstrong, just human highlight reel. More so with his bat in the series against the White Sox. Multi-hit games, 3-run homer, a triple on Saturday, a triple on Sunday. Like, the dude's just an absolute freak. And so, I was pleased with the series against the White Sox. I'm sure you were as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what you do to bad teams. You hang around in the games long enough, and you let the White Sox kind of beat themselves in some plays. I mean, their defense was awful. And I know the win was kind of
dropped, just misplays, or if you want to call them straight drops. That was crazy. That blew my mind. And I know, like you said, you were going to say, sorry for cutting you off, the win, but you're a major league. You can't have that many. I think there were 3
you can't have that many
on Saturday and Sunday combined, where it just blew my mind.
Oh, there was so many of them where you just every time you turned around and you looked, they were dropping something else. They were misreading a play. They were bad. I don't know what's happened to Luis Robert because he is. I mean, that was a guy who 2 years ago looked like he was. When they signed him to that big contract, it was like, oh my God, the White Sox got a steal on this guy, and man, he's really fallen off a cliff. If you got a little bit of hope, I thought Shane Smith looked pretty decent on the mound. He looks like he might be a pretty good arm. Chase Meadroth was a pretty good player. I really haven't paid much attention to him, but looking at his Fangraphs page, because I had pulled it up for talking about it, should have been paying more attention to him as a prospect. He's good. I'm shocked that he wasn't kind of popping up on more things. Former 4th round pick. He's 23, so he's not super old. He's got good numbers in the minors. He was a good player, but outside of that, man, the White Sox are a mess. And I'm not trying to pile on him either, because it's like we've been there. I've seen the Cubs be a mess before too. It's rough right now. They got a little bit of promise, Kyle Teal and a couple guys in the minors, Colson Montgomery. So hopefully they can figure it out down the road. But from the Cubs perspective, that's exactly what you want to do. They came in, they did what they needed to do. They won baseball games. Pete Crow Armstrong had a good game, good games all weekend. Kyle Tucker didn't do much, and they still kind of swept pretty easy. Got to see aforementioned Moises Ballesteros out there. They were short on a couple of their starting players. Shota's still on the shelf, and Ian Happ wasn't there, and they just did what you were supposed to do. There at some point the Cubs are going to lose a couple series to teams that we don't want them to lose to. That's the reality of it. The Dodgers got swept at home against the Angels, like that happens. We were talking preseason about how good the Dodgers were, and they're losing at home to the awful Angels team, just a really bad Angels team. And if you want to talk about organizations that I don't know what the hell they're doing, the Angels are an organization where I do not. They're another team like the Rockies. Them and the Rockies are doing their own thing, and I don't understand it. So at some point, we're going to lose a series to a team that we shouldn't lose to. It might be the one of the Marlins. After we'll talk a little bit about the bullpen later. It could be this series, and we just kind of have to remember that that's just baseball. Weird things happen, but when you get the chance to sweep a team like the White Sox, do it. Bank those wins when you can, and I'm happy about that. So bank the wins. They look good over the weekend, the way that they should have looked. Couple close moments maybe early in a game, and then they just kind of put them away, which is what you want to see. So I thought it was a good weekend, all things considered.
Yeah, one name I want to hit on the other side for the Southsiders. You mentioned Luis Robert Jr. It's real bad that he's underwhelming this year, because obviously for the White Sox, it doesn't help your team present moment, but also, I feel like he's been in trade rumors for like 2 years now, maybe even longer than that, 2 years at least. And you would imagine, you can look at the larger scope of, his major league career, and assume that he's going to get things back on track. But with how he's performed this year, it's definitely hurting his value if the White Sox want to entertain a trade come deadline time that involves Luis Roberts. So that's a train wreck all the way around. You talk organizationally, not just Luis Robert. I'm talking everything with the White Sox. And on top of it, you have a player that you probably thought at one time could be a blue chip player, could be a pillar for your franchise, and hasn't really worked out that way. But I mean, he has like next to no protection in that lineup, regardless of where you would put him anyway. So yeah, there's a lot going wrong with the White Sox. And like you said, we're not going to pile on because we've been there as Cubs fans before. So
yeah,
not ideal. Northside Baseball Podcast, Mitch Woodmeyer, Jason Ross with you. Matt Shaw returns, and we knew we'd get to this point eventually. We're glad we did. Shaw, it kind of went how I expected it to. I don't want to speak for you, Jason, but it went how I expected it would. It's basically, some early struggles as a rookie for Shaw. Weird start because you have that short series in Tokyo, and then you have time off again and a couple spring training games, and then, we're right back into the regular season. In a brutal start as far as like pitchers you're going up against, teams you're going up against, and Shaw struggled, and it went according to plan after that, is how I thought it would. He gets down to AAA, ends up getting in a groove, ends up finding his swing. I saw the leg kick shortened a little bit down in Iowa. I saw videos side by sides people were posting on X about that, and he starts finding a groove in Iowa, and boom, now he's back up again. And there's a huge void at third base for the Cubs. So you get him back up. He gets a go-ahead RBI double in the 7th on Monday against the Marlins. You hope that would eventually be the game-winning RBI double, but the Cubs blew it in the 9th. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Last year, Jason, I looked at the catcher spot as like the overwhelming weak link in the lineup. Like you couldn't get it going, and Yan Gomes, ended up got sent packing during the season, and Amaya couldn't really find a groove. And this year, it's been third base, at least in my eyes, offensively, that has kind of been like the weak link. To me, if Matt Shaw can come back up now, he's up for this second time. If he can even somewhat figure it out at the plate, it just makes this offense that much more lethal, that much more potent. Because to me, again, the weak link so far offensively this year has been third base. So if Shaw can give you something, I just think it'll help immensely.
Oh, absolutely. I do want to hit on one name that you just brought up because I had to look at it. I got to give him some props. Is Miguel Amaya. We just talked about him.
He's been awesome
being kind of a black hole last year. Currently in Major League Baseball, with all catchers who have at least 90 plate appearances, he is the 6th best hitting catcher.
He's been awesome this year.
Yeah, he's been awesome. He's been awesome.
And Carson Kelly was Aaron Judge for a little bit too, which was awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, between the two of them, it seems like one of them's hot and the other one's not for a little bit. That's really turned into a great spot. Matt Shaw, though, kind of swinging back, had to give a little bit of props to Miguel when I get to.
Absolutely.
But it kind of went the way I thought it would too. I had written an article on Northside that said, I thought he might struggle for the first month. And then I kind of targeted May 12th as kind of like my kind of breakout time for him with the Cubs. I just didn't know he was going to break out around May 12th at Iowa for about a week. And then he was up a week later. So I really wasn't that far away, I guess, all things considered. He is showing a little bit better of a leg kick, or at least a little bit muted one, but not always. I think that's one of the things I talked about this again. Speaking of articles that I wrote, I broke down a lot of his mechanical changes. And while he has shown a muted leg kick sometimes, last Friday, he hit 2 home runs. He had a muted leg kick. The day before that, Thursday, he hit 2 home runs. He had the big leg kick. So it seems to be that it's more situational and maybe pitcher related than it is like completely getting rid of it. There would be really no reason to hit 2 home runs on Thursday and then eliminate the leg kick again. That would be weird. But it seems to be a little bit more kind of thought out at the at bat. One of the things that I noticed that he's doing a little bit differently is his back. His back is a little bit more upright when he's coming to swing, and his front shoulder isn't tucked in as much. I'd kind of shown a breakdown on the website about an at bat he had taken on April 5th against the Padres. Cutter, Nick Pivetta, outer third, not a great pitch for Nick to begin with. It's not one of his good pitches. And it wasn't in a great location. That's a Matt Shaw pitch all day long. And he rolled over on a weak ground ball to second base. I mean, just a really bad nothing. He ended up getting a single out of it. The second baseman was playing him up the middle. But that's not a good swing. On Thursday last week, very similar pitch. There were actually 3 at-bats, very similar pitch. Outside, outer third pitch. One was a changeup, one was a fastball. One was I think 2 of them were fastballs. There were 2 fastballs and 1 changeup. He with his better front side, he's able to clear that a little bit better, and being a little bit more upright, he's able to stay tall on his backside. So what he did on all 3 of the pitches at AAA is he hit them hard to right center field. And if we look at his at bat last night, so just pulling up Savant and talking about that double, first off, that double was a home run in 4 parks. So not a lot of parks, but it was a legitimate home run type of a swing. But if we go and we look at that pitch that he hit last night, so I'm just going to pull it up because I'm fairly certain I know what I'm going to see when I see where the pitch was. But when I pull that up, so that was the second hit. That's not the double I'm looking for. You'll have to bear with me. Sorry, I wasn't expecting to do this, and then I thought about it. It was a sweeper. Nope, that was Ronnie Hernandez. I clicked. Yeah, that was. It was a sweeper on the outer third that he drove to right center field, and that's the Matt Shaw special. When you throw it outside to him, he's been very good about going the other way. But he was kind of pulling off of everything, not necessarily because I think he was trying to pull the baseball, but because he had to clear that front side. And that front side was just kind of sweeping him away from it. So he's able to kind of stay through it. And then he was able to deposit that pitch 100 miles an hour out towards right center. And he hit 3 home runs basically the same way at the end of last week in AAA. So I think if you want to say, mechanically, this is kind of the Matt Shaw that we're going to see. Is it still funky? Yeah, it's always going to be funky with Matt Shaw until he changes a lot of things. And I don't think that necessarily that's something he has to do. I will also admit I'm a fan of funk. I think it makes the life more fun. We can talk about, you think of some of your favorite baseball players, growing up, Ken Griffey Jr. Not necessarily a swing that you would probably teach everybody. It might be the most beautiful swing I've ever seen. Gary Sheffield, definitely don't teach anybody to hit like Gary Sheffield. And it worked. Yeah, right. The wiggle. I mean, before he swung, his bat was basically parallel with the ground, pointed towards the pitcher. Julio Franco, if you want a real throwback name right there, he played till like 46 with one of the weirdest setups that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Funk can work. You have to be very good for funk to work, but it can work. And I'm not.
You know who you're missing, by the way? That's an obvious one. Craig Counsell had a crazy batting stance.
Crazy batting stance. I think the best way, I can't remember who said it, but the best way I've ever heard anybody describe Craig Counsell's batting stance was it looked like somebody had shoved an umbrella up his ass. And I don't think that you could explain it better that way. And you have to forgive me. I can't remember who said it. But that's one of my favorite quotes when it came to Craig Counsell. But funk can work. And so I'm not at the point where I feel like they need to cut out Matt Shaw's funk. You saw it work last night. I thought that looked like a better Matt Shaw. He went up. He was aggressive on pitches early in the count. Wasn't scared of it. His second single was first pitch. I was listening to the radio broadcast on my way home last night. And I mean, they basically couldn't even announce that he was up to the bat before he singled right back up the box. And that's kind of what we kind of want to see from Matt. So if he can do that, I think we're all going to be really excited about that. He doesn't have to be a star. If he can give 100 WRC plus out of third base, that's going to really eliminate that position as a black hole. It doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be good enough.
I can't get over that Counsell comment.
Oh, it's one of my favorite quotes.
Not to just laugh again.
Oh, I love it because it does. If you think of somebody and that were to happen to them, that's what they would look like. It's one of the most apt quotes. I absolutely love it. I'll have to figure out who said that because it was.
I was trying not to laugh at the end of your talk there because I just
had it. That quote makes me laugh. It is one of those things that I read it one time. Somebody said it, and it was some pundit or somebody, whatever. I can't remember. It's somebody out there in the baseball world that you would know, I'm sure. And they said it one time that got burned into my soul. That was just one of those things.
With Shaw, you mentioned him going the other way too on these outside pitches, and you saw it last week in Iowa. We saw it with that go-ahead double late against the Marlins. How much of that is him just kind of taking what the pitcher gives him and not trying to overdo things? I think you see a lot of young players that they'll have a tendency, like just naturally because of the mental mindset they have, to try to overdo things, and you can get into a stage, I think, Jason, where a lot of these young guys are just pull, and they don't intend to be. It's just they're kind of over eager to try to prove themselves. So to see Matt Shaw kind of just easily taking it the other way on the go-ahead double, and you mentioned what he was doing in Iowa, just going the other way, just taking it where the pitcher's kind of delivering it, I think that's got to be a great sign for the Cubs and obviously for Shaw.
It is, and he's always been kind of he's always been willing to go the other way. I think it's like his first couple AAA home runs were to right field and right center field. I think his first ever professional home run was the other way as well. He goes the other way a bunch, and that's kind of when you know he's in a good group. Seeing him, he was able to kind of go the other way a little bit before, but it was all weak stuff. He'd hit those weak ground balls to second. And again, it was as you could look at it in the video where when he was going the other way, he wasn't necessarily trying to pull off of the ball, but his body, with him having to clear his front side a little bit, it forced him to pull off the ball because he had to clear this front shoulder. His front shoulder is just a little too tucked in. And when it's tucked in, you have to open it up to swing. He's moved it back. It's subtle, but it's like an inch or two. But it looks like he moved it back and it's just opened that top half up a little bit more. He doesn't have to clear it anymore, so he can go the other way with authority as opposed to rolling out weakly. And I think that's also why he hit so many ground balls. His backside was really dragging down, and it was dragging down when he was pulling off. So what he is doing is just hitting a lot of weak side to the right side, weak ground balls, and he hit a lot of ground balls. He's not necessarily a ground ball guy. I think he had a 17-degree launch angle, so he should hit the ball in the air, and that's mechanically not correct for Matt Shaw. So seeing him just like figure that out, and just kind of looking through some video myself and figuring that out, I do think that the leg kick's going to help a little bit. Less moving parts mean less movement errors. There's a couple of things that you can kind of see those things with. We see that with a lot of tall pitchers. There's just more human being to control, right? You look at those tall guys, like Ben Brown is somebody who can sometimes struggle with control. Why? Because it's a lot harder to control 6'6" than it is to control 6'1". That's an extra 5 inches of human being, plus all of the pounds that come along with that. It's just more. Same thing with hitting. Big leg kick means bigger error space, but that front side and that back just being a little bit higher, I kind of almost wonder if that deals with the oblique. The oblique is that hip area, and that kind of is where the connection between the top half and the bottom half, whether it was still kind of bothering him, that's why I got a little bit more hunched over. I don't really know, but the Matt Shaw I saw last night was the Matt Shaw we saw last about week and a half prior to that. He was making a lot of weak contact when he first got to Iowa too, and that's when you immediately knew, this was mechanical. This isn't like, oh no, this is a guy who's like lost the form of hitting, or he can't hit major league pitching. He went down and he wasn't missing anything at AAA. He had way better chase rate, way better contact rate, but he was still hitting a lot of ground balls. So that immediately said, hey, there's something mechanical here that needs to kind of work its way out. This isn't the Matt Shaw we should be seeing in Iowa. And he kind of figured it out, and we kind of saw more of that last night. So hopefully that can continue on tonight. Ryan Weathers, pretty good pitcher. We saw him the other day, but I think I think he'll hit lefties well. I think Matt Shaw's kind of geared to hit lefties well. So fingers crossed that he can just keep going, and no longer Matt Shaw will ever be a part of the minor league report. We can just keep talking about him at the major league level.
That's the idea. One guy that is down in the minor leagues, there's some name recognition. Kenta Maeda. Cubs agreed to a minor league deal with him last week. I had one of my buddies text me one of the tweets. I don't know if it was from Marquee or whoever tweeted it. It was just like, oh, Cubs have agreed to a minor league deal with Kenta Maeda. And one of my buddies texted me, Jason. He said, what the hell are we doing here? And I said, this is my thoughts. And then I'm curious to hear what you thought about it. I told my buddy, I was like, this is just the Cubs taking a flyer on someone that they can bring in. It's a minor league deal. And he really struggled with Detroit. Like, to put it bluntly, he had 7.88 ERA. His strikeout rate the last couple of years has been plummeting. He walked 14% of the batters he faced this year. He's 37. But I told my buddy, I was like, This is taking a flyer, seeing if you can figure something out mechanically with him. Believing maybe there's a little bit of juice left. Maybe there's a little bit of gas left in the tank. And if you can't, no biggie. It's a minor league deal. I saw he pitched in Iowa. I think it was a couple days ago. 4 runs in 2 innings. Well. But yeah, this is before the Cubs have really gotten their hands on him, I think, to try to tweak whatever it is they might want to tweak. I don't think they brought in Kenta Maeda with, hey, let's just have him keep doing exactly what he's doing, and we think it'll eventually work out. Like I would assume they have a hunch that maybe they can try to tweak 1 thing, 2 things, and see if it has a difference. And again, if not, you can just cut bait. And they took a flyer on Drew Pomerantz, and it worked wonders so far. It worked wonders. Drew Pomerantz has been brilliant out of the bullpen for the Cubs, and so to me, it's nothing more, nothing less. You're taking a flyer on a veteran pitcher who really, really has struggled the last couple of years. Even his last year in Minnesota before he injured his elbow was a pretty brutal year for him. So it's been a few years, I guess you could say, but really I was just looking at his numbers, strikeout numbers, walk numbers, like the wrong numbers are going down, and it's just, it's not ideal, but see if you can fix it. If you can't, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal for the Cubs. Minor league contract for him.
Yeah.
I
think it's probably even making, and I'm not getting on you, it's probably even making too much of it, thinking that the Cubs think they can fix them. Iowa's rotation doesn't exist right now. And that's the thing with all the injuries that the Cubs have had. Their rotation currently is basically Jordan Wicks, Connor Noland, and bullpen games. So throwing in Kenta Maeda, 37-year-old major league player, it eats innings in Iowa, which somebody's got to eat these innings in Iowa. So might as well be Kenta Maeda. Maybe you can figure it out. Maybe you can't. Who cares? Kenta Maeda is probably one of 10 former major league players who are bouncing around that the Cubs wouldn't have any problem going to eat some innings in Iowa. He doesn't have to be on the 40. You can sign him for free. You can cut him whenever you need to. But right now, I mean, there's like nobody to pitch down in Iowa. They've got some guys coming on back. Hopefully, Brandon Birdsell has been throwing, so maybe they can get him back a little bit. But like with the Sod out, with Horton up, with Brown up, that's probably 3 guys that you could have said at the beginning of the season you could have seen in the rotation. Brandon Birdsell's a 4th, so you got it's like 4 guys who should have been in the Iowa rotation, and they're probably not. Best laid plans. So they got to get some innings there. I don't think. I think if we see Kenta Maeda in Chicago, something's gone wrong. They still have. I still have Jordan Wicks, who talk about in the minor league report, but he had a pretty good start the other day. So he's probably next up. If Brandon Birdsell can get going, maybe you can put him in there. Connor Noland, another guy I'll talk about in the minor league report. He's probably like 2nd. Or maybe behind like Chris Flexen. So it's like there just really isn't a lot of depth right now with Iowa and with the Cubs rotation, and they're not going to really fix that problem for like a month and a half. I know a lot of people are going to say, "Well, just go out and trade for somebody." Well, who? Every major league team thinks that they're still in it, and if you're a major league team who doesn't think you're in it, go find a starting pitcher that you want on the Chicago White Sox or the Colorado Rockies right now.
The Rockies.
Best of luck.
Freeland or
who do you want on their teams?
Marquez.
They don't want them. They have 7 or 8 wins. They don't want these guys. You can even look at supposed good teams like the Baltimore Orioles. Well, the reason the Orioles suck is because they don't spend any money on their pitching staff. So there's nobody there. There's nobody to really trade for at this point. Anybody who still has a somewhat decent pitching staff probably isn't willing to trade anybody right now. They kind of take gambles on this. Might as well be Kenta Maeda. We'll see what happens. I don't want to see him pitch in Chicago. I think things have gone really wrong if we're at that point. But if he can just provide Iowa innings that somebody else could do, that's whatever. We'll see what happens. Maybe, but I doubt they find much there. But they don't have to.
Yeah. I think there's obviously, I don't think, there is some sort of, domino effect. Like Cade Horton was dominating in Iowa. We talked about it almost every week on the podcast. Like, another week's gone by. Cade Horton's had 1 or 2 starts where he's just absolutely shoving in AAA. And So we're like, man, that call up's got to be coming soon. And then when Shota went down, it's like, well, here's the obvious opening in the rotation to call up Cade Horton. And you mentioned Ben Brown in the rotation, and we'll get to the bullpen a little later on, but Porter Hodge now lands on the injured list, so you have to kind of scatter about who could be the closer, who could pick up one of those late innings, because Brian Presley hasn't really shown that he could be trusted in those spots this year. And so obviously there's a trickle-down effect that has to Iowa as well. So I'm with you. I put it on the tab because I was just reading and scrolling through responses.
It's always good to talk about him. I'm cool talking about Kenta Maeda.
Yeah. And listen, like I said, there's name
I hope
recognition
it's the only time
there.
we talk about him.
Yeah, and there's
I hope
name
it is, but
recognition.
yeah, there's name recognition. We could talk about it. And I think it's a good thing to talk about why these signings happen. A lot of times you see the Cubs sign Kenta Maeda, or, they're going to sign another major league pitcher. Think of a major league pitcher you haven't thought of for 3 years. They're probably a free agent at some point. The Cubs are going to sign somebody like that. That's what happens. And talking about that kind of reminds us that there's a reason they're doing this. Not every time they sign a Kenta Maeda means that the Cubs are like, well, we're gonna fix Kenta Maeda and he's gonna be in the rotation. A lot of times it's just, Kenta Maeda is a former major league pitcher. We've got innings in Iowa right now. Might as well be him. And then you can cut bait on him later, or even if he's somewhat decent, maybe you can Kenta Maeda. You can kind of reverse Drew Pomeranz Kenta Maeda, where a team comes calling and they're looking for a starting pitcher. You're not planning on using Kenta Maeda. So you go, okay, that's great. Hey, I'll trade you for cash considerations. Yeah. I'll trade you for a player to be named later. Even if it's some sort of lottery ticket that's not ever going to do anything. If you can sign a Kenta Maeda and get anything out of it, you win. Because I promise you, when the Mariners signed Drew Pomeranz, they weren't thinking they were going to get probably anything out of it. And the Cubs made a trade for it. I can't remember if it was cash considerations or a player to be named later. I don't think it matters, but the Mariners came out a win right there when they did that. So if the Cubs either get innings in Iowa out of Kenta Maeda, if they trade him for a bag of baseballs, these are all wins. And talking about that, I think it's good. So I like that you brought that up. I want to talk about Kenta Maeda. I don't want to talk about him often, but I do want to talk about him once.
Yeah, like if we're 2 weeks down the road and we're like, wow, Kenta's making the start on Wednesday night for the Chicago Cubs, we're going to be
like, God, everything's bad.
Everything's
bad. I promise you, the whole conversation, we'll probably talk about Kenta for a minute, but we'll probably be panicking about the IL list.
Jason Ross, Mitch Woodmeyer, it is the Northside Baseball Podcast. The floor is yours. We do this every week. You kind of hinted at a couple names you're going to hit home on, one being Jordan Wicks. I'm always fascinated by him because I really, really liked his stuff, his energy, his I just liked Jordan Wicks when he was up with the major league team last year, and injuries, and then it fizzled out. And I'm curious to hear his name, but floor is yours for the minor league report, Jason.
I like Jordan Wicks too. I've liked him for years.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way with what I'm about to say, but he kind of has always given me some John Lester vibes on the mound. He kind of carries himself the same way. Lefty, he'll throw in on your hands. He doesn't care. He kind of has that real like kind of stoic look on his face. It's not necessarily that I think he's John Lester, but you watch him pitch, and I always got John Lester vibes from him. So I was hoped that he was going to figure it out. He did have a good start. He went 5 innings. Changeup was pretty good. More whiffs than strikeouts, but if between the two, I would rather have more whiffs than strikeouts than the back way where you have a lot of strikeouts but not a lot of whiffs. Whiffs are induced by pitchers. Sometimes strikeouts are just because guys are watching pitches they shouldn't be watching. So yeah, he had, I think it was 9 whiffs in his last time with 3 strikeouts. So a little bit more whiffs than strikeouts. I thought he looked pretty good. He's probably next in line for if we need somebody to throw some innings.
Do you mean rotation or bullpen with him?
Rotation. I don't think
really?
He's bullpen. No, I do not. I mean, maybe they go and they put him in that kind of long place, but they've got Chris Flexen for that right now. Like Chris Flexen's like the long guy. So I feel like they kind of got enough lefties. So I don't think that they need Jordan Wicks as the lefty. They've got Thielbar, who I think he looks great right now. I mean, he looks like a really nice pitcher. Drew Pomeranz is useful. Tom Cosgrove, every time he pops up, he looks pretty decent. So you got 3 lefties right now. I don't think you need to shorten Wicks in the bullpen. You've got Chris Flexen who can do the long stuff. You got a bunch of lefties. All right, that's fine. But if we need another rotation guy, I think Jordan Wicks is probably your next up. Because after that, it's probably Connor Noland. And Noland's not on the 40. And while I think Noland has made himself somewhat interesting as like organizational up down, he's another guy that we can talk about, have a great start. 5 innings, I think he had 5 or 6 strikeouts, maybe 7. I had to look that back up. I had it down and then I X'd off the screen. So yeah, Connor Noland, there it was. It was 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, which, it would probably makes you think, this dude's got stuff for days, but his fastball average is like 90 miles an hour. So, he's organizational up down. I think he's command and control over stuff, and you can command and control your way through the minor leagues sometimes. We see this happen. But he's probably made himself interesting enough to where if you said, oh God, we need to start tomorrow, and you called up Connor Noland, he'd probably get you through 4 or 5 innings. He'd give up 3 runs, especially against the not great offense. He could probably get you through a little bit. I don't think you want him in the rotation very long, but he had another nice good start. If we want to talk pitchers, one name I really want to talk about is Will Sanders. Sanders was a mid-round pick a couple years ago. He's got SEC background. He came out with, he's had some arm issues, and he had a really bad senior year. And the Cubs were able to scoop him up in the mid-rounds. And all he has done over his last 17 innings is give up 1 run, strike out 21 hitters.
Wow.
This is down in Knoxville. I still don't think he's more than like a back rotation guy. I think he's a back rotation guy, like, low end 4, high end 5, maybe a Colin Ray type. But I think we're seeing right now the value of a Colin Ray. Having Colin Rays not only on your team, but just in the organization are good. If you can get, out of a mid-round guy and a senior sign, somebody who was, I believe he was a senior. He may have been a junior. I'll have to check that up. I'm kind of going off of mind. I thought he was a senior though, which is why the Cubs were able to get him in. Because I think he went back to school and kind of took a gamble on himself at South Carolina and just didn't have a great year. I'll have to double check that, but he's been doing really, really, really good. Every time I pop him up, he's doing great. So if you want to talk about innings that are going to go to somebody in Iowa, I think Will Sanders is probably getting close to a call up right now. He may have made his last start in Knoxville. They've already called up Jackson Wiggins in Knoxville, and I'll talk about him in a second. But Will Sanders feels like he's probably getting to a point where he's going to get some innings in Iowa. So keep an eye out on that name. Stay on the pitching train and talk Jackson Wiggins. Jackson Wiggins, I had a big start in South Bend 2 weeks ago, went 7 innings, struck out 9, hitting 101 on the gun early in the game. Brought him up to Knoxville this week, which from my aspect, thank you, Chicago Cubs, for making Knoxville just a little bit more interesting. That's the, I don't want to dunk on any of the prospects or anything, because, these are all kids who you're trying to live the major league dream. But Knoxville isn't where you would really go to watch, if you're going to rank all the minor league teams. It's probably the minor league team I'm watching the least right now. They don't have a lot of the high ceiling guys, and a lot of those people are not really performing right now. So seeing Jackson Wiggins go up there is making my life a little bit more interesting, because it gives me a reason to watch Knoxville. He went 4 strong, struck out 4, walked 1, gave up 1 run. Labored a little bit through like mid 70s pitches, like 72, 73 pitches. He not as efficient as he had been. Had to work through it, but that's his first start at the AA level. And if you're going 4 innings, 4 strikeouts, that's good. He didn't devolve into a walk fest, so I'm feeling happy about those things right now. I like where we're going with that. So those are some good things. And then another pitcher in Tennessee who I think, if we're talking about all these bullpen issues, Grant Kipp is a guy who's got a great slider. He's out of the Ivy League. He's been bouncing around forever, it feels like. But he's a little bit older of a prospect, but his slider has really come around this year. He did strike out 6 in 5 innings. Do not think he's a starting pitcher. Do think he's a right-handed reliever. But his fastball slider combination, I think there's innings for somebody like that. So Keep that name just kind of in mind, kind of a back pocket guy. Offensively, Matt Shaw, we kind of talked about that. He had a great week. He's hopefully off of my minor league report. Moises Ballesteros will be back on this week, so it'll be interesting to see what he looked like. One of the guys I've been talking a lot about is Ivan Brettauer.
I was just gonna say, what's up?
I'm not gonna miss an update. He had a bad week last week. Had a pretty good week this week. Still not really getting to the power right now, but he's only struck out 16% of the time over the last week. Had a
only one home
WR.
run this month. I saw.
Yeah, the power's just. I think with the mechanical change that he's had, he's going to have to relearn how to engage a 6'6" body with that way. We can see this with prospects a lot of times when they go to make more contact, which is clearly what they wanted to do with Brettauer, make more contact. You then have to relearn how to work an approach that is also aggressive, if that makes sense, because he needs to be aggressive and get to that power a little bit more, while also still not making a lot of swing and miss. And those two things are almost diametrically opposed. To hit home runs, you generally have to strike out more. It's just the way it works. And to make more contact, you have to hit less home runs. So you kind of have to find the middle ground, and you have to learn that. So I think maybe just like a little bit of a learning from that. That's my hope. The approach is really good though right now. He's making a lot of contact, and I'll take that for now. I think that's a good first step. You can always add power. I think it's almost easier for somebody like Brettauer to add power than it is to subtract strikeouts. And if they've already been able to subtract strikeouts, then you can kind of reintroduce power as you go. So less worried about that. We did have a couple of players who went down with injury, players who didn't play much. Angel Cepeda was a nice little IFA player down in Myrtle Beach. He only made one start this week. Cole Mathis played on the 13th, hasn't played since. That's not great. He was a Cubs second-round pick last year. Carter Trice did not play at all this week either. Those are a couple of prospects that have been having good seasons. Didn't see him at all this week. Never great. James Triantos is back in Iowa. Speaking of injuries, James Triantos ended up a lot of soft contact, a lot of hits. That's kind of what he does. He's kind of like the antithesis of Owen Casey, who strikes out a bunch but hits the piss out of baseball. If you combined them, they would make one player who was amazing. But they're a yin and yang situation. Casey's strikeouts are down a little bit further, like 27% over his last 40 plate appearances, which is good. If you can keep that in check a little bit, that would be awesome. And then I'm going to close
it off real quick.
Yeah.
Casey, is that a name we could see this year?
Yes, I do think that is a name that we could see this year.
I thought so too, but I always lean to you on those questions.
Yeah, and I think it depends a lot of times on like who goes down and like who is playing well right then. I think if Michael Busch goes down, it would be really interesting to see how the Cubs handle that. I don't think that the goal is to play Justin Turner the entire time at first base. I don't think the answer would be to play Moises Ballesteros at first base a lot. But, and this is me just playing games and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Kyle Tucker has some experience at first base. And if Kyle Tucker were to move to first base, that would open up a space in right field. And if you wanted to have more power, maybe we're losing Michael Busch, so you lose some of that home run stuff. Maybe you want Ballesteros to stay down in AAA, continue to work on the catching. Maybe you bring him back up, but Owen Casey could be an option right there to plug and play in right field, especially if like Seiya Suzuki was hurt as well. I mean, if you have two outfielders down, I think he's somebody that we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised to see Owen Casey this year.
That's why I wanted to ask you that. I was curious.
Yeah, he has some of
I can see it. Yeah.
He has some of the best barrel rates in all of minor league baseball. He has some of the best exit velocities in all of minor league baseball. He's pulling the ball more. He's hitting it more with power. He does strike out. It is Owen Casey. That's going to happen. I kind of liken him a little bit to kind of Kyle Schwarber-ish, but not Kyle Schwarber all the way. I think a lot of times when you think Kyle Schwarber, you think low batting average, lots of strikeouts, lots of walks, three true outcome guy. Casey kind of fits in that three true outcome guy. He's going to strike out. He's going to walk. He's going to hit home runs. But he always runs really high batted ball and play averages. He seems to have a knack for getting hits to fall as well, and I do think that's a skill. I don't think that that's just luck. He's running at every level, so I do think he's almost like the ceiling for Owen Casey is like, what if Kyle Schwarber hit like 250 all the time and could play right field? Like that's kind of like my ceiling. Yeah, that's a 95th percent outcome. It's probably going to be lower than that. But like if you want like the best, yeah. If you want the best version that we could see of Owen Casey, that's kind of where I set it as. It's like, what if Kyle Schwarber instead of hitting 230 hit 250, and what if he could play right field? And I think you'll get that. You'll see a lot of the same strikeout percentages, walk percentages, power. It's all there. So we'll see where it's at. Owen Casey's a big fan of mine, or a big favorite of mine. I'm a big fan of his. I've been on him.
Be a fan of yours. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe he is. He's probably big fan of the Northside Baseball Pod. Thanks for listening out there, Big Maple. But I've been a big fan of his since 2020 draft. I was upset that the Cubs did not pick him in the second round that year. He would have been. They ended up taking Burl Caraway, who has, in terms of draft busts, that is a draft bust name that is probably top of the list. If you're just to throw a little Burl Caraway lore at everybody, he was second round pick in 2020 COVID draft. He was supposedly going to be one of the best. He was supposedly going to be one of the best relievers in the whole draft, and he ended up never throwing a strike at all in 5 years. I don't think he's thrown one strike. His walk numbers are egregious, and he just popped back up in Tennessee this year on a minor league deal, and he still can't throw strikes. That is, and I don't want to dunk on the kid because he's out there, he's trying hard, he's still chasing that dream, but man, it has just not worked for him. And the Cubs could have taken Owen Casey that year. They ended up trading for him in the Yu Darvish trade. Got very excited about that. Give me 6'6" kids out of Canada with prodigious power in the second round. That's the kind of pick that I like. And they ended up with him anyways. So big Owen Casey fan. I'll close off the minor league report with Jefferson Rojas, who has just been awesome. He was great a couple years ago, not great last year. Has been on fire to the point where, like, I kind of like almost called him, like in my weekly hot or not article, I almost called him not for a 110 WRC plus. That's where I'm at. Like, that's a cooled off week for him, is being 10% better than league average, because he's been just unstoppable lately. He's probably close to joining Jackson up in Knoxville. He's been awesome. I would not be surprised to see him move up at the start of June. Feels like that's kind of where that's headed. He's been great. And he's just another one of those kind of like next guys there. We'll see if it makes it through the trade deadline. I think, a lot of the guys I'm giving you reports on, sadly, will be playing in other organizations come August 1st. If the Cubs are good and they still need pitching, well, some of these guys
both of those are probably going to be true. I would expect the Cubs to be good in August, and I would expect them to need pitching still.
Yeah, so I think that those things are going to happen, which means that the result is that names like Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, maybe Moises Ballesteros, Jackson Wiggins, Jefferson Rojas, these are going to be some names that will have to go. And it's not fun, but kind of way I always look at it is if we're giving up prospects and names that hurt to say, you're usually getting back a player that you're excited to get. It wasn't fun to say that we gave up Isaac Paredes, who's having a good year in Houston, and Cam Smith, who's not really having a great run in Houston. Wesneski, Tommy John surgery this week. Poor Hayden on that. But, I didn't want to give up those guys, but we got Kyle Tucker, and that's kind of how that works. We're going to have to give up a couple of these names that we've kind of prospect clung on to over the course of the last few years. And I watched a lot of their games, and they're going to be playing for somebody else. And that's going to suck for a few minutes. But, if we get a good starting pitcher, we get a Joe Ryan from Minnesota, who, might not be the sexiest name, but he's a good pitcher. It's all going to pay off in the end. So, minor league system still rolling along. We'll swap out Ballesteros and Shaw this week, and keep rolling it on next week. Hopefully we have another good week of players to talk about.
Yeah, what you finish up with, there are two kind of funnels into our last point. I had messaged you on Slack, and I think I said bullpen talk. We can take it wherever we want. We'll probably have different angles here. Should lead with saying Porter Hodge lands on the IL with an oblique strain.
God, those
Cubs
bleeps
tried
this
out.
year, man.
Yeah, Cubs tried out Palencia at closer Monday night against the Marlins. We saw that went. Although I will say,
I don't think it was Daniel's fault last night.
yeah, I'm still very. I like Palencia. I
I'm
agree.
not.
I like.
I don't
Palencia.
think he had a bad appearance last night. I know he's going to get saddled with the loss. He was like one slider 2 inches off the plate from ending that right there.
Yep.
He hung one. Kyle Tucker 50% catch chance on that one. That's a coin flip play. Sometimes bad things happen when you do good things, and it just kind of sent Daniel down a wrong path. But I didn't think he looked bad last night. I thought he looked fine. And I don't want to.
The Tucker no catch, by the way. I rewatched it like 4 or 5 times. I still couldn't come up with a conclusion on whether or not I thought he should have caught it. And I think you just said 50-50. I think that's where I land too. Like I just kept watching the replay. I was like, he should have caught that, right? And then I watch it, I'm like, I don't know. Like I
think that's the difference between being a fine right fielder and being a Gold Glove right fielder. Kyle Tucker's a fine defensive right fielder. He's fine. He's won a couple. I think he's won some Gold Gloves or something like that in the past. He's not really a great right fielder. He's fine. And I think we also have to remember like what the bar for being like a Gold Glove corner outfield is. It's not very high. A lot of times people have kind of crapped on like Ian Happ winning it the last couple of years, but he was like the second or the third best NL defender at left field. And that's kind of what they look like. Like that's like if you're a top 5 defensive right fielder in the NL, that's what Kyle Tucker is. He's fine. And that's a 50-50 play. That's a play if you have the Pete Crow Armstrong of right fielders, they get to. But if you have a normal right fielder, it's 50-50 play. It happens. That was a tough play. Bummer that he couldn't get to it though. But tough play.
Yeah. So with the bullpen, Palencia, I'm with you on that. I'm glad we see eye to eye on that one.
Yeah.
With Porter Hodge on the shelf here for a little bit, I'm all for giving the 9th. If you want to try Palencia, that's fine. If you wanted to throw Brad Keller in the 9th, I would be all for it. I look Brad Keller. Brad Keller.
Brad Keller. He's the best. He's the best reliever the Cubs have, even with Porter Hodge.
Yep. So
I love Brad Keller. Brad Keller.
They want to give him the 9th. I'm all for it because I look around and I'm like, with all due respect, Presley, no. Merriweather, no. Palencia, maybe. Like I wouldn't mind if they went that route with Hodge out, but Keller, I'm like, just do it.
Yeah, Brad Keller.
That's where I'm at with it. I don't know. I don't even know who else you'd put in the discussion outside of like Keller and Palencia if you wanted to lump him in. I don't know if you saw this. Jed Hoyer was on 670 The Score Tuesday. Didn't really mince his words, didn't hide his thoughts about adding arms come deadline time. He had numerous quotes, Jason. I'm going to throw one your way. This is Jed Hoyer talking on 670 The Score. He said, and I quote, "There's no question our bullpen is going to be aided by outside help, whether that's big transactions or small. There's no question we're going to continue to add guys." And so when you just did your minor league report and I said it funneled into this next talking point, that's Jed Hoyer speaking like someone in absolutes. Like he is speaking in absolutes like, we're going to add more arms. And he's saying big transactions are small. There's no question we're going to continue to add guys. And when he's saying that, he isn't saying guys in Iowa that they're envisioning for the like maybe you bring up a Jordan Wicks for the rotation at some point, but when he's talking about these transactions and he says outside help to him is not AAA. Outside help to him is no, we're going to be trading and acquiring a reliever, acquiring maybe another starter, which again I'm all for. And
I'm going to throw one more name in the 9th inning.
Yeah,
just while we talk about it.
Don't
the
say
Cubs have
Pomeranz.
a pitch. The Cubs have a reliever who is the 99th percentile in expected ERA. That sounds like a pitcher that I would put in the 9th inning if I needed to, and that's Caleb Thielbar.
Oh wow!
Caleb Thielbar has been quietly significantly better than people have given him credit for this year. He has had a very good season. He is just looking at the numbers. He is running a 1.86 expected ERA on the season. If we take out his his first little bit, right? His first little bit where he struggled his first couple of starts. If we just go and we take out all the way to his blow up on April the 6th, he's running a 1.46 ERA. He is, and this is over 12 innings, right? This is over 12 innings. So we're talking about not a non-insignificant amount. He's striking out 26% of hitters, walking 4% of hitters over his last 12 innings. That is another guy where if you have a heavy lefty lineup coming up, I'd put him in the 9th inning because I think he can shut it down right now. Caleb Thielbar is another, like if I had a trust tree right now, Brad Keller and Caleb Thielbar, those are the first 2 guys I'm going to.
That's fair. Yeah, I think we're both on the same page with Keller.
Yeah, I wanted to give some love to Thielbar there. He's pitched really well, and I don't think he's gotten the credit that he's deserved this year. He's been very good. We remember like his first couple where he didn't have it, and over his last 12, it's like Brad Keller's been the most trustworthy, but the guy that I feel the most comfortable with coming in after that is Caleb Thielbar. I want more. I got a fever, and that fever is the only prescription is more Caleb Thielbar. So yeah, give me more Thielbar.
Oh, that's fair. I do think with Porter Hodge on the shelf here for a little bit, it'll give Counsell, more wiggle room to try different things, see if something sticks. Yeah. I think we've talked about this before with how volatile bullpens are in general. But, I will say, to me, for one reason or another, it's been sort of a prolonged issue for a couple of seasons now for the Cubs specifically. Like, just something they just can't. They're having a trickier time just hammering it home, I guess, more consistently than other teams are. But
I think it's the way they build it.
Yeah.
Every year at the beginning of the year, it's kind of one of these spaghetti at a wall situations. It's like, we'll bring in Julian Merriweather and Ryan Presley and Caleb Thielbar. And
you could even say at the beginning of the year, Brad Keller was one of those names. Like, we'll bring in Brad Keller.
Brad Keller was another.
And magnificent. But yeah, that was a name where it was like, we'll bring in Brad Keller.
They throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall. And, Caleb Thielbar working out. Brad Keller working out. Nate Pearson didn't work out this year. You look at it, Gavin Hollowell kind of working out when they bring him up. Chris Flexen, I've been shocked. He's kind of working out when they throw him in there. I think it's just like this, like kind of like aspect of like, all right, let's find some guys that we can have, and then we can like fix it as we go. Type of a thing. I know we as fans get like really worked up about like losses last night. Like, you should have had that one. All teams kind of blow those kinds of games. From here or there, we live in Cubs land. And when we live in Cubs land, we forget that everybody else is doing this stuff too sometimes. It's not to say that the Cubs bullpen's good. It's certainly not, but you can start to see you could like make the outline of the bullpen. Like it's there. There's missing like one guy you really trust at the back end, and like maybe one guy that you miss, like you really feel comfortable with in the 6-7 spot. And they could figure this out. But it just feels like, it's that one spot that comes up and you're like, man, there was the one spot, and they just keep like, it's like that. It just keeps pointing at it, keep poking at it. And it just feels like it's when they blow the game, it's like, that was the one inning that we just didn't have, and they found it that day.
I don't know. You were saying like other teams do this, and yes, they do. I'd have to really do some digging. It was like a couple weeks ago, I saw someone post on Twitter, and it was cropped out like the score bug from the broadcast of 7 different Red Sox games this year that they lost, that they were leading either by 2, 3, 4, 5 runs like later on in the game. And they lost like all 7 of these games. And I saw it on a Red Sox page. Someone had tweeted out like, it's okay if you lose 1 or 2 of these games early on in the season. To lose all 7 is absolutely absurd. And I was looking at the scoreboard, I was like, oh my gosh, whoa, Cubs aren't the only ones that are kind of going through, a little bullpen problem once in a while.
No, we're actually we're currently tied with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams with 8 blown saves, and that's not even leading the league. The Red Sox are with 11. Go figure.
Well, right? Look at that.
That's why I brought that up. But like you have, I get it. Like you don't really want to be blowing saves, but it's a somewhat blowing saves is it's like blowing a save is like the double play of a of offense. For a double play to happen, usually 2 good things have to happen first. 1, you need to have somebody on first base, and 2, you need to kind of hit the ball directly at somebody, and it's usually pretty hard. If you hit a weak thing, it doesn't always really work out that way. Well, to blow a save, you have to be winning a baseball game.
Yeah.
So, there's I guess a little bit of it goes to there, but like the Dodgers have a 4.03 bullpen ERA. They've blown 7 games. The Cubs have a 4.36 ERA. We've blown 8 games. I don't, I, I know that the bullpen's not great, but at the same time, yeah, I think when you kind of put it in those perspectives and you're like, you know what, it's really not as it's not as bad as I think we feel it is. We watch the games and we get frustrated because like last night, you're like, they're one pitch away from winning that thing, they lose the game. But like, I mean, if the Dodgers basically have the same ERA and have basically the same blown saves, I guess like how much worse, like how much worse are we really doing than that? I'd
Yeah.
like to have a Tanner Scott, don't get me wrong. I think it's almost more like a playoff concern than it is like a regular season concern for me.
Fair.
If we get to the playoffs and we're sitting there with the Dodgers, who do I like? I feel comfortable with their bullpen over our bullpen. Not based on those numbers, but because like they have like a Tanner Scott and they've got a few other guys in that bullpen. You're like, yeah, I mean, they're good. They're good relievers. Whereas the Cubs, it's like, I mean, like right now it'd go to like Brad Keller, Caleb Thielbar, and maybe Porter Hodge and like Daniel Palencia, but it feels like they're missing somebody to like really lock it down.
Yep.
But I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Maybe I'm too too forgiving on it too.
You know what is interesting with what you just said? I think I should say I believe with Cubs fans, some of the like why some are upset with the bullpen more so than they should, because you just laid out the numbers with the Dodgers compared to the Cubs and how similar they are when you talk about blown opportunities, bullpen ERAs. I think the difference with Cubs fans and their perspective is that you see the Dodgers make heavy investments with a Tanner Scott. And I'm going to throw a name out there, and it has not worked out. I think he's been better the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know if it's been that long. But like the Yankees traded for Devin Williams in the offseason. And on paper, everyone's like, wow, the Yankees got aggressive. They traded for, one of the best closers in baseball. And the Mets did it a few years ago with Edwin Diaz. We haven't seen the Cubs take, in my opinion, a big swing on a big reliever who's proven it over the course of quite a few years in a while. It's you said at the wall. Brad Keller's been phenomenal. I don't think many expected it. Drew Pomerantz, for what the expectations were, a guy who hasn't pitched in the majors in years, and you bring him over, he's been really, really good given what we thought he would be. Caleb Thielbar, as you alluded to. I think sometimes Cubs fans, and I base a lot of this off my conversations with my buddies in group chats where I'm in too, where we talk about the Cubs all the time. And I constantly hear them with the bullpen, it's these journeyman arms, and it's never the Cubs taking a big swing on a big name. And so you're right in that, if you look at the numbers right now, they're similar to that of the Dodgers, who have taken big swings. I think a lot of Cubs fans want to see them maybe this year at the deadline, if a name becomes available, take a big swing on a proven commodity at the reliever spot, whether it's closer, whatever, probably closer. But
I guess the one thing that I push back on that is that if the Cubs are able to do it with Brad Keller's and Drew Pomerantz's, and they're getting basically the same results as the Dodgers are with Tanner Scott's and Kirby Yates, Cubs do not have the resources that the Dodgers do available to them.
Correct.
So they've got to make some choices somewhere. Now, with that said, I'm going to completely swerve and agree with everything else that you said, because the Cubs do need to get a reliever at the deadline, and I do want them to get somebody that makes me excited. I guess I know this is like just a weird way of saying it, and maybe this is like my meatball baseball opinion here. But I want somebody who has a cool entrance. Like you know what I mean? Like
Johan Duran, Edwin Diaz.
I want a guy like that. Like I want a guy that they have to come up with the video package.
Do we have the acoustics at Wrigley for that? Or
like
I'd like to find out.
I want the lights flashing. I want colors going. I want there to be a song. Can
you imagine if they did that for Nearest last year?
Right. Oh God. Yeah. But they need a guy like that.
Yes, 100% agree. 100%
when was the last time they had a guy like that? I mean, they signed Craig Kimbrell, and he was that guy for like a year, but they really haven't had like a
Chapman when
guy
they
who
traded for him for half a year.
Chapman-ish? Yeah, and I don't know, personally, I had a hard
I
time
agree,
rooting Chapman,
100% know where you're going with that.
just
Agreed.
as a
But I'm
person.
saying like
Yeah. But yeah, but
on
it's
the
probably the
field.
last one.
Yeah,
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 but like on the field,
yeah,
they haven't had a guy like that, and it would be great if they could. And I guess that's like my kind of like my line. Like,
yeah,
can we please just have one reliever that has a song and an entrance that you're like, he's coming in, like here
yeah.
it goes. And we
Nails. Like
haven't had,
it's about to be
yeah,
3 up, 3 down.
yeah, and I'm like, I mean, God, you pull up Brad Keller's numbers. They're good as can be, but there's not gonna be any song for Brad Keller. And again, that's meatball stuff.
Yeah,
That's my baseball analyst side knows Brad Keller's like really good. He's been awesome this year. I mean, just like one of the best relievers in baseball type good. Like he's very, very good. But I don't think there's going to be a song for Brad Keller. And I want a guy with a song. I want a guy, I want an Edwin Diaz, Tommy Trumpets moment happening at Wrigley in the ninth, and you just know that the game's over. So while I do think that the Cubs can kind of get away with less at times in the bullpen, I think they have. But it's kind of also time, just like, yeah, go get a guy, please.
yeah. You know what's
And
interesting too?
yeah.
You brought up like look at what they've helped turn Brad Keller into. Look at what they've helped with
Mhm.
Pomeranz and Thielbar.
Yeah.
Imagine if they got a big name and who was already good and proven, and how automatic, in a sense, that could become if the Cubs could help that name with even tweaking one or two little things,
Yeah.
little minute things. Like, yeah, if they're helping out names like Keller, Thielbar, and Pomeranz, which they are. Imagine if they get a big name that's proven it throughout the years. How much better?
Absolutely.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm right with
Yeah.
you on that. I think it'd be
It
great.
it's gonna hurt it's gonna hurt to get one of those guys, and, that's the one thing I'm gonna warn. There are
Yeah,
gonna be some names that I have said, or on the minor league report that are good, like a Jonathan Long, and that's not gonna be what it just costs. It's gonna be like Jonathan Long and a thing that you don't wanna give up,
man. What if
and
they
that's the
include
price
Ivan,
you
man?
pay. Yeah, and guess what? When they pay those things, it's gonna suck. It's really gonna suck. But it'll all be worth it if they can come out and they can close out that night. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm willing to pay a little extra.
Then in October, when the Phillies or Mets head to Wrigley for a
Yeah,
divisional round series, and the ninth inning rolls around, and we've got our version of Sandman with Enter
yeah,
Sandman like Mariano Rivera had with the Yankees, or the Trumpets with
yeah.
Diaz. It'll be worth it then, right?
It will be. Yeah, it will be. That's the thing. You gotta pay a little bit to get him. But it'll make ninth inning a lot more fun when you've got the Mets who are coming up with their like, Lindor, Soto, Alonso thing, and you're saying, well, hopefully Porter, is throwing strikes today. You don't have to do that, and you're just like, oh yeah, Ryan Helsley's going to go in and strike out the side, or Brad or Johan Duran is going to strike out the side. I got somebody like that. It'd be great.
Pick up the phone, call the Twins, and be like, "Hey, we're interested in Joe Ryan," and they're like, "Yeah, we don't know." And Cubs are like, "Yeah, we also want Duran, so we
Yeah,
want
that's
Duran and
that's
Ryan, little package deal. We're going to send you over a
yeah.
lot, but
If you want
you
one stop,
checking multiple
yeah.
boxes there. That'd be
If
a
you want one stop
blockbuster."
shopping, I feel like the Twins are a good
Griffin
they're a
Jacks,
good
I don't mind Griffin
yeah.
Jacks. I don't know
I
if he
wouldn't
gets his
mind
own
Griffin
song. I
Jax.
don't know if he gets his own song, but that'd be a great arm.
Yeah, it would be a great arm, right? I think there are some great arms out there, and the hope is that they can go find some of those. The Twins would be a really good one-stop shop. I know our friends out there at Twins Daily. Probably have some ideas on that. Shoot us over some trade offers. We'd love to hear them.
They looked
So,
like sellers 3 weeks ago. Now all of a sudden they're rocking and rolling. I think they're in second
it's
in
the
the
AL
Central.
Central.
I know. I think
The
it's the
AL
Tigers'
Central.
division to lose.
Everybody's in it except
The
the
White
White
Sox.
Sox.
Anything else you got on the Cubs bullpen? Like I said, I'm
Um,
glad I met. These are the topics that to me are sometimes really fun, because I literally in the Slack channel just messaged you bullpen talk, take it wherever we want. And I thought that
yeah,
was a good little 20-25 minutes of bouncing around all over the place.
I'll finish it up with one
Mm-hmm.
person who once again I feel like deserves a little bit of plaudits. We're talking 4 innings, so I want to keep it in that. Let's remind ourselves this is 4 innings, but Mr. Ryan Presley looks significantly better right now. And after putting him in some like lower leverage situations, they put him in kind of like a setup role last night. And it looked good again. He struck out 23% of his hitters over the last 4 innings for somebody who had 5 strikeouts on the season. That is significant because he has, 4 strikeouts in his last 4 innings. So he's basically doubled that. He looks once again like a reliever that you can use and not a reliever that you have to put in down 7 in the 6th inning or up 7 in the 6th inning. I don't necessarily want to suggest he starts closing anytime soon again, but if we can get Ryan Presley, the setup guy, I think we're doing pretty good. So he's looked better, and I part of that is that he's seen of those innings, of those 5 appearances in those 4 innings, it's been Mets, White Sox, Marlins, White Sox, Marlins. It that helps, and that's one thing that I think we also have to remember is that getting into a lot of these lower kind of tier teams is going to just help the bullpen look a little bit better too. But I did want to kind of bring up Presley. I think he's been kind of a punching bag so far. And when you're kind of a punching bag, we kind of forget that sometimes it doesn't always have to be a punching bag. And he's been better. So we'll see where that goes. Good 4 innings. Hopefully it continues. Maybe he can make himself as a relevant arm. And then Ryan Brazier is in AAA, is probably getting close to a call up. He's probably a name that they could probably help in that like 7th, 8th inning area. He's pitched fairly decent at in AAA. I'm just going to pull up his numbers because I didn't have them ready to go, but I do believe that they've looked pretty good every time I've seen him out there this year. And he's striking out. He's gone. He said 5 innings so far. He's got a 1.80 ERA, and he's striking out a good amount of hitters, 26% of his hitters. So I think Ryan Brazier is somebody who's going to help out the Cubs bullpen a little bit too. So as many injuries they've had, they've got maybe some guys coming back up soon who can help out.
Cubs 2 left at time of recording this. 2 games left with the Marlins. It'll be a Cade Horton Wednesday afternoon against the Marlins. And then Jason and I have talked about it. This stretch is time to pounce. Even with some of the injuries, it's time to pounce for the Cubs. You have 2 left with the Fishies, and then you have 3 against the Reds, 3 against the Rockies before you go back to the Reds for 3 more, and then 3 against the Nationals before early June comes around and you hit the road for 3 against what I believe I had told you a few weeks ago, my preseason parlay that I bet, and I picked 4 division winners, and one of them was the Tigers in the AL Central. That is a pesky Detroit Tigers squad. They just find a way.
They're better than I thought they were. They've been
Bobby Baez, by the way.
Baez.
What a resurgent year. Good for him, man. I'm happy as heck.
Super awesome for him.
Yeah.
Super awesome for him. A lot of the underlying stats say that his bat still isn't particularly great, but he's turned himself into a very useful center fielder defensively, and his bat doesn't have to be great if he's going to play that good of defense. He made a catch the other day that was awesome. It didn't look that great on the bat, but the percentage of like catch was ridiculously low, and he made a great play. So I'm all for it. Go Javi. Big fan of Baez. I love redemption arcs like that. So
yes,
I'm all about that. Doing well. So fingers crossed he can keep going. I'm here for the Tigers doing well. My father's a Cleveland Guardians fan, so my heart will always kind of root for Cleveland just a little bit for him. At least at this sport, most of his other sports, his teams win. And I'm done. I'm done caring if the Pittsburgh Penguins win a Stanley Cup. So if you're listening out there, Dad, I don't like Sidney Crosby more than I love you. So that's the reality. But his Cleveland Guardians don't win, so I have a soft spot for them. But yeah, Tigers have been really good. Tariq Skubal is awesome. He's so much fun.
Trash talk too, man. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, I love Tariq Skubal. I was.
Do you remember last deadline they were talking about trading him?
Yeah,
and then they go on that huge run in the second half, make the playoffs, win a series against the Astros.
So I was just about to say, I was kind of bummed out that the Cubs couldn't make a Tariq Skubal thing happen last year, because there were so many signs that this guy was just going to turn into like the best pitcher in baseball.
Cy Young.
God, he's awesome. He's just so good. He is as good as they come. Tariq Skubal. So I'm here for the Tigers doing well.
Yep. And as we said, the Cubs will have the Tigers early June, starts June 6th. But before that, we mentioned this is time to pounce. 2 more against the Marlins, 6 against the Reds, 3 against the Rockies, 3 against the Nationals. This has been the Northside Baseball Podcast. I'm Mitch Woodmeyer. He is Jason Ross. We'll see you next time.